Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause, and I wanted to do a quick video about the Patreon controversy that's has been going on lately. I weighed in a little bit earlier, but um, I was trying to offer some nuance to the conversation, and my actual opinion on this situation is that these companies that offer, a monetary service should be more careful about banning someone. When someone gets banned, it should be pretty obvious that they deserved it. And basically, if you're just like a service for money, you basically shouldn't be banning people at all unless it's, you know, I mean, if you're like trafficking drugs or something and the federal government is stepping in, that's a little different. But when you're just talking about like speech, you shouldn't be taking away people's livelihoods for speech. Just let the content that's being created on these other platforms get banned by itself. But anyways, Eric Weinstein, who is, great, a great follow, he said boom to this Patreon, and that comment, and that was the perfect response in my opinion. But let's read what the response was. So first, Robert Spencer said, Robert, by the way, not Richard, and I'll go over who he is in a little bit. But I've been axed from Patreon without explanation, warning, or notice. No doubt as part of the ongoing efforts of the left to deny all platforms to those who reject its agenda. To those who supported me there, thank you, and I'm sorry we couldn't follow through on plans. Oh, and by the way, I forgot who said it, but there, there was there was someone that came forward and basically said that unless the far left can ban people on every platform, then banning doesn't work. I think I heard that on the Hard Bastards channel, but and that's telling. That's why they always want to lock down like every new avenue, and they try to contact every single platform because if you're allowed to use any platform, they also go to monopolies. Like there's not really a serious competitor to Patreon, so if you're off Patreon, it's kind of hard to go anywhere else. Um, so there are some services, but they're very very small. But then here's just a little thing about how his account's been disabled. And then Patreon responded, Hi Robert, we emailed you earlier today which explained that unfortunately Mastercard required us to remove your account. You replied to us, but if you have further questions, we're happy to keep emailing. Yeah, they always want this to be private. That's one of the things. They always try to get these people to stop talking in public. Contact us privately, even though that won't change anything, so that you can't do any public damage to us. I highly, highly doubt that Mastercard came down on them and was like, Patreon, you gotta remove Robert Spencer, or we just can't work with you anymore. I mean, my God, Mastercard deals with a lot shadier people than and issues than Robert Spencer on fucking Patreon. So I've gone through Robert Spencer. The main thing he's known for is the director of Jihad Watch, I think. But he's also apparently he's written 18 books. He was a best-selling author on the New York Times. Um, and he's basically just a personality that fights jihadism. If you've never heard of the website, I don't frequent this website, but I've run into it before. There's I've never really seen anything like bad on here. It's just, like here's Merry Christmas in a time of persecution of Christians. Pakistan, Muslims arrested after shootout planned jihad massacre at Christmas celebrations. Gaza, jihadis warn that celebrating Christmas is evil. New York Times, what a Muslim could teach Trump supporters about Jesus. I mean, Canada, Muslim cleric says wishing Christians Merry Christmas is worse than murder. You know, they're kind of just raising awareness about jihad around the world, and it doesn't seem there doesn't seem anything to be racist or, you know, Islamophobic or anything. It's specifically against jihad. Now, another thing to love about Robert Spencer is that he's hated by the Southern Poverty Law Center. I mean, doesn't that give you bonus points at this point? Like, if Majid Nawaz and people like that are on these lists, I mean, I'd love to be on a list with Majid Nawaz and some of these other guys. Like, that'd be an honor. So I'm not sure it's a bad thing to be listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center anymore. But just listen to some of this. Spencer is one of the most prolific anti-Muslim figures in the United States. Well, first of all, it's anti-jihad, or jihadi. An incessant blogger. I love how they add incessant like that. First of all, nothing that's been said is really bad so far, but they add incessant like to make it scary. An incessant blogger, author, and activist, he insists, despite his lack of academic training in Islam, that the religion is inherently violent and that extremists who commit acts of terror are simply following its most authentic version. His right, there's a lot of other people who say that, like Sam Harris. So his writing was cited dozens of times in a manifesto written by the Norwegian terrorist Anders Breivik. Sorry, I destroyed that name, I'm sure. Spencer was banned from the United Kingdom as an extremist in July 2013. So I clicked on the link, and it's through the New York Times. Killings in Norway spotlight anti-Muslim thought in U.S. The man accused of the killing spree in Norway was deeply influenced by a small group of American bloggers and writers who have warned for years about the threat of Islam, lacing his 1,500-page manifesto with quotations from them, as well as copying multiple pages from their tract of the Unabomber. In the document he posted online, and by the way, you think this would be like, in order to ban someone from the UK, you think this would have to be like really, really bad, right? In the document he posted online, Anders Behring Breivik, who is accused of bombing government buildings and killing scores of young people at a Labour Party camp, showed that he had closely followed the acrimonious American debate over Islam. His manifesto, which denounced Norwegian politicians as failing to defend the country from Islamic influence, quoted Robert Spencer, who operates the Jihad Watch website, 64 times and cited other Western writers who shared his view that Muslim immigrants pose a grave danger to Western culture. Okay, first of all, I want to point out other Western writers were cited. It's not like he's the only one. So, and it's not like he wrote this manifesto that uh, forces terrorists to go like kill a bunch of people. It's not his fault if, he says something that's true and then some crazy guy goes and kills some people and writes his own manifesto. Like, how can you ban someone based on that? More broadly, the mass killings in Norway with their echo of the 1995 bombing of they're just going on and on. You can read it if you want, but I just wanted to point out like this article doesn't really point out anything that he said that was like super bad to get, bad enough to get banned. Um, and in case you want to see the document by the UK, it's like Mr. Robert Bruce Spencer. I am writing to inform you about British government's measures for excluding or deporting extremists under the unacceptable behavior policy. This, if you really listen to this sounds like pretty bad. It's like China type of shit. The list of unacceptable behaviors covers any non-UK national, whether in the UK or abroad, who uses any means or medium, including writing, producing, publishing, or distributing material, public speaking, including preaching, running a website, using a position of responsibility such as a teacher, community, or youth leader, to express views that foment or justify terrorist violence in furtherance of particular beliefs, seek to provoke others to terrorist acts. Okay, the one guy, he might have committed a terrorist act, but that's Robert Spencer wasn't seeking that. Um, he wasn't justifying terrorist violence either. So, foment other serious criminal uh, activity or seek to provoke others to serious criminal acts, foster hatred which might lead to inter-community violence in the UK. I don't think any of these really apply, but um, it, you know, I really don't. Even if they do, then I think this should be rewritten because he doesn't seem like the type of guy that should be banned from a country like the UK. And given that, like, just look at what the UK is allowing. I mean, there's all kinds of problems in the UK right now with rape gangs and all of that, and half the time, I mean, there's all sorts of like no-go zones, and it's kind of sad. Like, there's a huge problem in the UK now with like girls getting raped, but they before they get raped, they get their tongue like nailed to tables and stuff like that. It's like, where's the UK to step in on this kind of stuff? They're worried about people like Robert Spencer. Give me a break. Um, but yeah, well, I guess we can go a little further on the Southern Poverty Law Center thing. It says, I want to go down to it in his own words. I've written about how jihad terrorists use the Quran to justify violence and to make recruits among Muslims who are peaceful. If the Muslim community at Stanford University was actually threatened by that, then they are actually saying or implying that they're on the side of the terrorists. Because if they're not, then why would they oppose anybody who is exposing the motivating ideology of the terrorists? Perfectly reasonable statement. I mean, what they're talking about, or what Robert Spencer is talking about, is he went to Stanford and he, like many other people, got protested um, there by the students. And so he's saying those students who protested are actually the ones who are taking the side of the terrorists. Very reasonable statement. At some point, Western officials are going to have to face the contents of Islamic teaching and recognize that bringing large numbers of Muslims into the West is only going to increase the number of beheadings and extortions to kill Jews, as both those things are taught in Islamic texts. Again, very reasonable statement. So, I mean, I'll put all the links in the description if you want. There's nothing here that I read that was jumped out as some sort of bigot or anything. He seems like a reasonable person. Um, oh, I think it was here. Yeah, oh, that was good. Spencer works closely with his allies, most notably Pamela Geller and David Horowitz, to broadcast his intolerant message. David Horowitz is just like a conservative. I mean, he's pretty even mainstream. Pamela Geller, I mean, I'm not really a fan of hers, but whatever. So, anyways, that's what I have for you. You know, Patreon looks like they went after Robert Spencer, and then when they started taking some heat for it, Eric Weinstein's jumping in here, or Weinstein, he's jumping in, and Patreon's now trying to blame it on Mastercard. Um, but like I said, I highly fucking doubt that Mastercard is the reason why. And I'd like for people who have been banned, I'd like them to come forward and be like, "Yeah, I was using a Visa," or, let's get some information on this. Like, where are all these bans from people using Mastercards? So, anyways, have a good one, guys.